This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Breaking Banks Europe. After so many celebrations, 500 guests, 250 episodes, I wanted to be back. I was afraid to be forgotten. So today, episode 252, news from the Fintech Front for October 2024. I have an amazing guest. She is Devie Mohan, and she's a highly influential figure in the fintech world, recognized for her insightful commentary and writing. As a co-founder and a CEO of Burnmark, I hope I pronounced it correctly, she provides crucial research and data to key players in the fintech ecosystem. Devie has been instrumental in guiding banks, startups, and investors through the rapidly evolving landscape of financial technology. Her advocacy for collaboration between banks and startups underscore her commitment to fostering innovation. With numerous accolades and roles, including being a judge for various prestigious fintech awards, Devie's expertise is widely acknowledged across the industry. Wow, could we have a better guest than somebody like this? So welcome, Devie, to Breaking Bank Europe.
Thank you so much, Roberto. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So, let's see what happened in the past month in the fintech world. All right, so we saw dominance from the UK. The fintech sector in the UK has cemented its position as a leader in Europe. After Brexit, this is pretentious because maybe it's not really Europe anymore, but in the area, let's say, okay, capturing an impressive 65% share of all the deals in the first half of 2024. This is very, very impressive. This dominance comes despite the challenging environment marked by a 25% year-on-year decline in the overall European fintech funding. And this is true, right? It seems Asia is more ahead with this sort of thing. So thanks to the UK, Europe is catching up. The UK's strong performance highlights its role as a hub for investment and innovation, with significant contribution from major players like Monzo. Monzo, it is a name, huh? It is Monzo. You can think somebody can have a successful story with a name like Monzo, but so. What factors, what factors do you think have contributed to the UK dominance in the European fintech market?
Thanks, Roberto. It's so interesting. Just to be clear, I'm based in the UK, so I'm biased towards the UK. Having said that, UK has done extremely well, as you pointed out, last year and doing so this year. So the growth has been absolutely amazing. It's grown about 0.7% so far this year, compared to, as you mentioned, the decline in EU of around 25% year on year. It is not a huge economy or a huge market compared to China or India in terms of the number of customers we have. Even Monzo, as we love to have here in the UK, Monzo and Starling are wonderful challenger banks. I know the founders. I knew the founders very closely back in 2012 when they started. They've done amazingly well. They have millions of customers. But again, the scale is completely different in Asia. So UK has absolutely done well. I think we have about 7.3 billion in investment deals so far this year, which is really, really great, especially compared to last year. But I think we have a long way to go. And I think this is where we're going to see that Asia come into the picture, because I think a lot of the UK banks, including Monzo, will look to the US, look to Latin America, look to Asia for their new and upcoming markets, I think.
Oh, that's interesting, right? because Asia is so strong. There is a lot of cooperation between Asia and London. I can notice. I live in Asia, so on the other side, I am I'm biased on this direction, and I can see the amount of invitation I have for a fintech conference in the UK, and that compared to the rest of Europe, and that really showed me that where things are. But being Italian, is north of Africa, Italy, and which is, you think, the possibility that the rest of Europe can catch up thanks to this strong leadership of the UK?
I think UK is traditionally a strong fintech hub, and there's so many reasons behind that. I mean, one is the language, and I think being the hub of Africa, Asia, and America in a way, and it's been that way for the last 100 years with banking, with traditional banking. A lot of people from Asia, Middle East, and Africa invest in London, in the UK, and London is a hub in terms of all the cultures coming together because of its history and also because of the language. And I think that plays a huge role in fintech as well. And one of the things I do in my part-time, spare time is teach at universities here. And UK is the one place with hundreds of masters in fintech courses, so MSc fintech courses. And again, education brings a lot of people here from Asia and Africa. So I think UK is a hub that has a good regulator, strong banks, banks investing in fintechs, enough venture capital investment, not as much as the US or Silicon Valley, but we have a good chunk of capital here. Lots of accelerator programs, lots of universities offering the right kind of courses, lots of skills development available. So I think UK has some things which have happened traditionally over the last 100 years, but is working very, very well for fintech. In terms of Europe to catch up, I think there are some hubs that are doing really well. We know that I think France has about 13 unicorns, and Amsterdam, Netherlands, has around 12 unicorns. So it's not a bad number for a smaller hub. But UK has 52. So I think it will take a bit of time to catch up, but it's not far behind. I think there will be substantial growth in Europe, especially in established markets like France and Netherlands and Spain, and also newer markets coming up. And I see lots happening in Poland, Romania. Italy is more fragmented, unfortunately, Roberto. Italy doesn't have a hub per se. I mean, there's Milan, which is doing a lot. There's Turin, but there's a lot that happens in the south as well. So it's quite fragmented. So there's no one hub. But hopefully, those are a few markets I think that we will see in the next few years.
So we know that there are a lot of interesting cheap low-cost flights. So people in Europe, go to London, make your connection, get a good deal, and bring them back in your own country. That's only the way that we save Europe from being left behind in this fintech race. So let's talk about this Monzo. Monzo, they reached like a 5.9 billion valuation. Okay, I have a spare change. We can say 6 billion almost. Okay, Monzo, the UK is a UK-based digital challenger bank, and they made an employee share sale, and this gave this valuation to them. Consequently, provided this liquidity for them and employees, but also attracted a lot of investment from existing bakers. And for example, you were saying connection between Asia and London, Singapore. JC is there. There is Stepstone Group, and so not only they did this, they have a very good annual profit. So there is a growth trajectory and plan for expansion in the US, as you were saying, that in America there, and also Europe. How significant is Monzo achievement in the context of the broader fintech industry?
I think it's a fantastic case study of how well a challenger bank that started quite small, about 100,000 customers in the early couple of years, can grow and achieve such a significant valuation. And like I said, we only have about 120 fintech unicorns in the whole of Europe. So, achieving that kind of valuation is pretty significant. I think I think UK has quite a few unicorns in the challenger banking space, including Orknotes, which was the first one, and Starling Bank, etc. But all of that, I think, is remarkable for the UK fintech industry and also for the European fintech industry. It's a sign that there is faith. It's a sign that the market is doing extremely well, and it's a signal to investors to keep coming back to the UK. And as we know, the ecosystem grows with the help of one or two big players, and that's what's happening in this space. We see a lot of the smaller startups emulating, learning from, using the lessons from, using the resources of Monzo and largest fintech startups. And I think that will help the market grow. It will help more people come to the UK, like you say, to ask for case studies and ask for lessons learned from these startups. And I think it's fantastic. But one caveat I would give, and as a researcher, I look at both sides of everything. Valuation is not the only thing I look at. And I think profitability is also absolutely key to look at. And to me, that is a bigger achievement because a lot of the challenger banks struggled with profitability and establishing a marketplace and collaboration with other players. And that's where the challenge lies. And I think Monzo has become profitable this year, which is really, really good. But I think that should also be an aim rather than valuation of startups. And it is almost counterintuitive in a way to say that because a lot of the startups are surviving on valuation. And the only metric that affects them is valuation and funding rounds and the frequency of funding rounds and also customer acquisition rates to a certain extent. But I think we've reached a point where we need to think beyond that and kind of focus on numbers around the profitability, around customer retention and metrics we have not looked at in the past. And that is where Asia comes into the picture again, because a lot of Asian challenger banks are actually quite profitable. So a lot of the Chinese challenger banks, WeBank, MyBank, iBank, they're all profitable. We have at least 4 in Japan, including Rakuten, which is profitable. Kakao Bank in South Korea has been profitable for years. Paytm in India has been profitable for years. Yeah. So I think we could take a few lessons from there. Yeah.
In my opinion, that's the key of business, right? is doing for real or doing a fantasy things is okay. I accept that somebody need to conquer his share of market and go through a certain amount of time where there is no profit, but at the end of the day, that cannot be the business model. But not only in banking or fintech, in general, I saw a lot of startups. They really plan just to be financed and lose money for forever, which is not really something that is realistic in my opinion. Obviously, if you
glad you agree, Roberto.
But when Monzo now go out of the UK, so I mean, like one thing is to be at home and work at home very well, but when conquering new places, finding different regulators, finding different markets. What are the challenges that you think they're gonna face when expanding internationally?
I think Monzo's next market, I believe, would be the US. And if you look at the US, it's a crowded market already. I mean, the market is so fragmented. It's based on the state, the community. I mean, the community banks have a big hold. And a lot of these people are becoming digital. The larger banks like Bank of America, Citibank, etc., they're changing their strategy to become less B2C and retail focused. So it's a very interesting market, but very, very crowded. It will be interesting to see how the UK challenger banks end up playing in the US. But I think there is opportunity. It's a large market. It's a huge digitally native population. But I also think the partnerships are very, very important to look at. Right. Walmart has their own app and almost a large bank connected to their financial services unit, for example. Same with the large retailers, the large car companies, the large Amazon kind of players on the online side, as well as the physical retail side. So there are quite a few big players. And I think the collaboration with them and the partnerships will make a huge difference in terms of what Monzo can achieve there. But it'll be interesting to see where they actually go next. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah.
In fact, I have a question for you because I think this can be a silly analogy, but to me it's very actually factual. So when a camera from having a film and being developed normally, they became digital camera, right? So this is a little bit like banking and financial world with the fintech world that is more on the technological. You see banks becoming software houses, not to lose. Is a direction that you think is there is no other way? Is gonna go like this and those financial institutions that don't jump into this trend, they're gonna end up dying and being, like a museum, or there is gonna be both things going on. I mean, I know it's an industry that moves slowly, so I don't expect it to be like a blockbuster overnight of being closed down because they remain with the videotape or the DVDs. But in the longer term, is something that either everybody innovate to become a technology finance kind of provider, or there is going to still be the classic use all the financial institutions.
Yeah, I have a different view to that. I think banks do have a place in the industry, and it's not going to die entirely, but they may change the way they work. As you said, they may become banking as a service providers, or they may become regulatory hotspots, or they may become software houses, like you said. But I definitely think banks have a role, and I'll explain this with an example maybe. Unlike the camera, which became physical to digital, or Blockbuster, which died out because it became physical to digital online, I think fintech is slightly different. They're not making banking digital. Instead, what they do is actually bring an entire new population that has never done something before and giving them more options to do their transactions. And that to me is comparable to, let's say, Uber. So Uber, for example, when they first came to London, there was this huge cry from all the black cab drivers and the traditional mini cab drivers saying, oh, they're going to kill our business. But guess what? Almost 15 years later, black cabs have their own, they haven't lost their market, and Uber has a place to play as well. And in my research, I saw it's because it's the people who never took a black cab before because it was too expensive. They're suddenly taking Uber because it's now more affordable.
Nice.
So these are the people who used to take the bus or used to walk 20 minutes to their meeting, or they would take the tube 5 stops and change again, which was inconvenient. Now they have started taking Uber because it's now more accessible and more affordable. So I don't think that original market has gone from traditional banking industry, similar to the traditional cab industry, but they've carved out a new space, if you know what I mean. And I think both have an opportunity to play in that.
Super. So fintech is a complementary to the classic banking and is not stealing business, but actually maybe even bringing in more because it's a sort of a channel. But thank you very much for this, because really clarifies something that I was wondering, somebody with your knowledge can give. Because on the other end, there are also governments and central banks that are moving towards something electronic with the CBDC. We hear this CBDC, the digital currency for central bank, central bank digital currency, CBDC. And there are being noticeable advancements, maybe forgotten by the media in silence, but there are things that are moving on. And there are several projects that several countries are bringing ahead. Myself here in Indonesia, the Bank Indonesia is working in the digital rupiah, but it's not something you read in the news every day. But I know that they are advancing until they're gonna surprise everybody. And not always those are following the principle of a fully decentralized finance, et cetera, et cetera. How would you see, maybe with the point of view of the UK, something like this, taking place?
Yeah, definitely. I think almost every country in the world is thinking about that. I know Brazil has launched Trex recently, and the UK has the digital pound, which is a form of CBDC that they have launched as well. And I think the last time I checked, there were 120 countries actually looking at CBDCs, and around 30 of them that have already launched. So it's a big pound. It's a big chunk of the market. I think there are more successful projects and less successful projects, to be honest. I think the UK is still in very, very nascent stages, so they're exploring the digital pound and seeing what it can do. So I would call it more exploratory to kind of see how regulation can work in the digital currency market when you can't regulate the bitcoins and cryptocurrencies of the world, and how the market reacts to having an option available as a digital currency. So it is more exploratory. I think Hong Kong and Singapore are doing something similar.
Yes.
Interestingly, I read recently that Canada was trying a big CBDC project, but they have stopped working on that. So they have withdrawn the CBDC project. So I think it's a sign that a lot of the exploratory projects may not have gone well. And it could be cultural, it could be regulatory, but I think there are some factors that are actually preventing countries from adopting CBDCs widely. I think we're still in the early stages. I think it will take a few years to iron out the issues in the market.
But they are not serving the public, they're serving retail. So the experiments are gone only with the businesses, right? So we are not testing how people reacted to the CBDC, right? But more
Yeah, B to B to
corporate.
C, but still, it's the consumer's mind, I think, that they are trying to understand with several of these projects as well, because the ultimate aim is to roll them out to the wider public, I believe. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I guess we go toward the last. We are coming. We are at the 20-minute mark. The producer is telling us we're going ahead for another while. We have more question, more news from the fintech fronts. So there are privacy concerns related to artificial intelligence. The recent discussion have highlighted concern over AI giants collecting user data without explicit consent. We know that they use a lot of data for training. A lot of data that is inserted when people do query is also be used to train, but also to do data collection. And in the moment that these AI systems are used in the world of fintech, how is these things putting in place, what measure can be implemented to ensure that data privacy is maintained in the application of AI in the world of fintech?
I think it's such a big topic, Roberto. I think I agree. There's so much to be done in terms of consent, in terms of collecting and using user data, and also then managing it in-house. A lot of the issues actually stem once you get AI data into the company, especially a bank, and banks are very strict in terms of regulations around how long to store it and where to manage it and which servers to go into, which departments should have access to it. It's actually very, very complex. I think it will take a few years to sort out these issues, but consent is a huge, huge topic. Again, some countries are better than the others. I think Canada has key-based consent technology being implemented, which essentially means that the consumers have the right to decide how the data is used. But again, you could give consent, and how long does consent last? And what do they use it for beyond what you have actually given consent for? You even read very few people read the terms and conditions when it's sent to them. So do you actually send information in a meaningful and concise manner so customers know exactly what they're doing and signing up for? I think all of these are big questions now, and one of the big issues is customers not really realizing the extent to which their data is being used. The other trend I see with Gen Z, for example, is that they are demanding the data to be used at a price. So they are demanding more services if the data is being given out, for example, social media data. So again, when it comes to AI and machine learning algorithms using your data or any data, again, where does that fall in the picture of consent and in the picture of monetization using that data? So yeah, big questions. I don't think we have a ready answer.
Also, because technology changed so fast that it is even difficult to catch up in what happened to information in all those tunnels. But on the other hand, AI has been helping any industry to accelerate, speed up, grow faster, innovate, is being something that I think those that can connect to an AI raise their IQ about 20 percentile in the world. So we are suddenly smarter and we can do many more things. In the world of fintech, in the growth of fintech, which is the role the AI is playing, to becoming the driving force in transforming financial, how this financial institution operate, how the fintech company can, change their business model thanks to this big innovation derived in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think AI has such a powerful impact on fintech, and I think we'll continue to see that. And it's not just AI, but use cases around AI and machine learning and neuro-linguistic programming, for example. We see a lot of startups now incorporating AI from the beginning, which is really impactful. A lot of the robo-advisors or investment apps now use AI. I mean, they've always used AI, but they use AI for KYC as well, in terms of understanding the behavior and emotional patterns of humans and investors, which I think will be extremely powerful going forward. I think that's where AI will have a huge impact, because now you're not just looking at numbers or stock values like we traditionally did, but we're actually going to look at emotional connections and behavior and the amount of passion you have around certain topics. News is being analyzed in a different way. So I think AI has this huge amount of impact on fintech in everything from challenger banking to payments to lending to regtech, all the way to investing and gamification. And I think, it's everywhere.
Plenty. Yeah, because people tended to think that AI stay only in the chatbot when you ask the information. Yeah, and it's unlimited answer. But in fact, there are application of AI even in the back end of things, in how things move and are managed. Well, I guess we are getting to the end. I think that we covered quite a lot of the news from the fintech world for the month of October. I don't want to stress this too long. I think we are perfectly to the point of closing today's episode. One more time, thank you so much, Devie, for joining us in Breaking Bank Europe. This was episode 252. This is Roberto Capodieci, your host, and see you next time on Breaking Bank Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roberto, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with Fintech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.